Okay, review's done. How long till Extella Link comes out? Damn it! Personally, I blame streaming. Imperial Onslaught was just too much fun, and can also be viewed on my Twitch. What's up guys? The day is finally here. Senran Kagura has once again found its way into the review zone, and to be 100% honest, I'm glad I waited to work on this because this was a buggy mess on release, but a few patches later, and I think it's ready for prime time. So onward into the soft pillowy bosom that is Senran Kagura Burst Renewal by Tamsoft and Honey Parade Games. And let's pray that Sony's tentacles haven't extended into the Steam version. This is curious. Senran Kagura's story and presentation has always been a sort of mixed bag. There's the obvious fan service that anyone who has heard of the series will be immediately familiar with, for better or worse, but there's also this underlying level of darkness simmering underneath, and I'm not 100% sold on the mix this time. But I'm getting ahead of myself. The name Burst Renewal might ring some bells for those only moderately interested in the franchise, and that's because this game is an action game remake of the side-scrolling beat-em-up Senran Kagura Burst, only released on the 3DS back in 2011, 8 years ago. Now don't get too excited by the word remake. Let's go! This one's more of a traditional go-about, with modern gameplay, but telling the original story that started it all, warts and all, because playing through this, it kinda shows that Tamsoft has improved its storytelling over the years. You start the game selecting which faction you want to play as. The Hanzo National Academy side with Asuka and the gang, aka the Good Shinobi, or the Hebijo Clandestine Girls Academy with Homura and her squad, the Evil Shinobi. As for the other factions, yeah, they didn't exist back then, so have fun being DLC.
Hello darkness, my old friend.
Before we dive into the plot though, let's just point out the character art, because hot damn, Nanya Higashi really went above and beyond for these portraits. Just look at the detail, the energy, the opai. You can also switch between the various portraits of each character throughout the series in the menu, but why would you? There is no more clear-cut showcase of improvement throughout the series than in these pictures. It's like comparing a light Hadoken to a medium Hadoken and an EX Hadoken. The Hanzo plot is a basic origin story for the main heroes. Asuka, the heroic leader, Katsuragi, the easygoing pervert, Ikaruga, the calm big sister, Yagyu, the cold tactical member, and Hibari, the innocent good girl. After listing them out, only one of them seems like they would be a good ninja. The story mostly focuses on Hibari feeling like dead weight compared to her teammates, and the clash between the two schools kicking off with Hebijo attacking for the first time while their sensei was conveniently gone, with an eye on their school's super secret ninja scroll. Don't look at me like that, that's how the game describes the damn MacGuffin. The story is filled with plenty of dark moments, but never really feels like it goes anywhere with them. The relationship between Ikaruga and her brother, for one, has this real tense build-up, but instead of following through with gameplay, is quickly resolved inside the game's visual novel style cutscenes. Also, hold up. What is with these black bars? I know it's a bit of a nitpick because that is the correct aspect ratio of the original CGs from the 3DS version, just upscaled, but really, zooming in on these to fit properly onto a 16:9 screen would not have ruined the image. There are portions where the game goes into 100% visual novel mode, with walls of text, but while they are voiced like the rest of the game, these moments do overstay their welcome and end up putting me to sleep at multiple points. Moving on to the Hebijo side, also before I forget, these main menus are amazing, showing each character engaged in whatever they do while relaxing. The Hebijo campaign focuses on the origin story of the evil shinobi Homura and her team which are very much different from their Hanzo counterparts. Homuda is a prideful warrior determined to be the best. Hikage is an emotionless, and I swear the game won't let me forget that, girl going with the flow. Yomi is a communist. Haruka is a perverted manipulator, and Mirai is the new girl. Now this is a ninja team. Sure, they also have their lighter moments, but the Hebijo girls story doesn't strain my suspension of disbelief nearly as much as Hanzo does. And this is coming from a person who enjoys anime where a girl uses her knockers to reload during gunfights. My disbelief has been trained over the years. The campaign is funny enough, centering a lot of the story on Mirai trying to measure up to her seniors. It's a bit lighter maybe because the bulk of the origin stories are covered in the first story, leaving more time to focus on character interactions. Make no mistake though, there are dark moments fitting to an evil shinobi school, but here the blend is much better. They even introduce the two factions inside of a hot spring segment and only have them fight in death matches, or at least what they call death matches, far later into the story. Wait, introduced in a hot spring segment? What happened to the fighting at the school?
Ah, jeez, it's not this shit again.
Okay, so these two stories have nothing to do with each other, and I mean nothing. They do have some parallels like the girls' origin stories, but aside from that, sit in two different timelines. This game doesn't even directly connect to the other games either. As far as I can understand, the sequels of the game kinda continue the story, with Hanzo's story leading into the 3DS title Deep Crimson, while Hebijo's leads into the more commonly known Versus series. Kinda. It's not 100% because both sequels sort of pick and choose elements to continue on, while others get retconned, but it's the general idea. Funny enough, it kinda makes sense. The Hanzo campaign is, like I said, a bit more serious compared to Hebijo, and its tactical follow-up, Deep Crimson, from what I've heard, is the most serious out of the franchise. Back to Burst Renewal though. The stories overall are okay, a bit slow at times while others can have me very invested, but I'm still not happy with the cutscenes themselves, with what visually looks like reusing assets, something I find myself repeating in each time I review a damn Senran Kagura title. And this franchise still has a bad case of speed racer mouth. Not saying that they have been using the same model since Shinobi Versus, but these models look like PBS models, which look like Estival Versus models. Not a great look to be honest. Contrast that with Yaigashi's work, and while I was playing, a part of me really wanted the 3D modeled cutscenes to just be replaced with his 2D portraits. Like holy shit, 6 years later and Hikage's tattoo still blurs when you get too close. Despite these complaints, the presentation overall is very much improved, taking cues and elements from what PBS did with lighting and other visual elements and using them to great effect here. The music, too, was a breath of fresh air. Senran Kagura's last outing, PBS, was seriously lacking in interesting and blood-pumping tunes, but here they are back to form, not to Estival Versus levels, but damn near close, and are all pretty good to fight to, which in the end is the important part. So with that, let's move on to gameplay, because if we're talking about improvements, nothing got improved quite like the gameplay did. And of course, there we can go over the real reason people play these games. Shoot, I forgot to cover the opening video, didn't I? It's just not a Senran Kagura review without the opening. I'm actually quite lukewarm on this one. The song is okay, but nothing that I would be jamming in the car to. And the video is good, showcasing a bit of the character's personality, but aside from that... Wait. I've seen that clip before online. Wasn't it supposed to be longer? Speaking of potential Sony meddling, going to open up this section with the dressing room features, because if we're being honest here, nothing has changed in over 3 goddamn reviews and I am getting tired of talking about it. Starting with the intimacy mode. Since this is the Steam version, we have access to it. And yeah, more of the same. You can grope, pull, and poke various parts of each girl's body, getting a response each time. Though strangely enough, the one reaction I wanted was forever outside my reach. They don't seem to respond to head pats in this one. Customization in this game is basically ripped straight out of Festival Versus, with the same outfits, the same colors, and the same accessories. I went out of my way to make each character at least a little different, and even had some fun with the goofier options. But overall, this is a disappointment. Like really? Nothing new? Did you save it all for the DLC Tamsoft?
Yes.
Senran Kagura's combat is pretty simple at its core, stemming from its origin as a side-scrolling beat-em-up. Characters primarily have a short 4 to 5 string combo that can be cancelled with a launcher, followed up by an aerial raid sequence, and finished off careening to the ground with your victim. Sure, it's no Devil May Cry, even though its recent outing does raise some
Got something to wear that's good for digging?
comparisons, but the game does do a fair bit to keep the player's attention even with such a simple combat system at its core. Every one of the 12 playable characters have their own attack styles, with their own flair and personality, and even a full unique special attack that can be charged for more powerful effects. Characters like Asuka and Ikaruga can teleport to their target before launching them in the air, while others like Katsuragi and Yagyu will launch a volley of projectiles at the enemy. With their basic attacks though, most of the cast does play roughly the same as you mash the attack button, with the exception of a few members of Hebijo dabbling in concepts like zoning, charge attacks, and debuffs. Expanding on their attack variety is the Shinobi transformation. Roll the clip. One of the centerpieces of Senran Kagura that was missing from the last title, the Shinobi transformation regenerates their clothing, restores health, and even upgrades the move list with even flashier and more powerful moves. Players from previous Senran Kagura games will notice that the transformation animations in this game are vastly different from their previous iterations, each one now showcasing their personality alongside their personality, or lack thereof. Side note, though this may be a hardware issue, I kept randomly getting a brief stutter during the transformation sequence. As far as I can tell, they might be related to loading assets or something, because it tends to mostly happen during the first transformation in a match, with subsequent ones happening smoothly, but it should be noted for people not playing on the Titan MK4000 DX plus Alpha with ray tracing. After a Shinobi transformation, characters get a new set of moves and access to their supers, and we all love a good cinematic super, so let's see it. It's kinda disappointing that the supers don't seem to have gotten the camera angle treatment that the other visuals got, but they are still pretty fun to watch, and even though level 3s need to be unlocked through the story, if you are impatient they can be unlocked from the start via a menu option. I like the story unlocks though, because it reminds me to actually use the character's damn level 3s. Hell, Katsuragi's was so cool that for a moment I actually thought hers did get an update. A new addition to the franchise though is the burst mode, a powerful enhancement that steadily builds up as you fight. Think Street Fighter V's V-Trigger gauge. In this form, your attacks are more powerful, you have particle effects flying off you like you're a Super Saiyan, and as a bonus, your animations are reverted back to the character's base form. When the gauge is emptied, your character will do a huge and powerful AoE attack capable of killing most common enemies. It looks really sick, and if you kill an enemy shinobi during this form, you get a badass shot of your character stripping the target in style. You know, I only played one transformation this time around, but that we need to see again. Can I get one more? One more can't. As good and well as all that is, it does bring, almost forgot, frantic mode. Yeah, that's still a thing. Here you select it from the beginning of a stage, and for those who don't know, it reduces your defense and overcharges your offense while giving you a looping set of attacks. Much less interesting when you realize you can block cancel to get a similar effect in normal form, but you're naked. As good and well as all that is, it does bring up the disappointment that the stage finishers from the last game are not present in this one. Actually, now that I think about it, aside from the standard clothing damage and the burst finishers, there's not much fan service in the combat at all. No wet clothing like there was in PBS, no stage finishers like in Estival. Hell, stripping the enemy in combat here doesn't even leave them fully naked in the cutscenes like it did in previous games. I wonder if someone had a hand in that. Shit, the anime has higher levels of fan service than this, and that was produced by Crunchyroll. Surprisingly tame for a Kagura title, and hopefully not a sign of what's to come. But to compensate, there are a good bit of core combat improvements that, while not taking this game to the next level, certainly make it more fun. The combat is faster than Estival Versus, not quite Shinobi Versus though, from what I hear. Block cancelling can be done freely by the entire cast, there are now attack indicators that make getting hit feel more your fault, and there are only 2 styles to level up, with Flash and Yin being merged together while also having more useful things to level up for, like blocking in the air. All this comes together to make your side of the combat much more enjoyable. I still feel the sheer enemy count is still a bit lacking in 2019, a 3D beat 'em up should be me slaughtering hundreds not dozens, maybe another holdover from their beat 'em up days. As much as I enjoy the mob combat, I wish I could say the same for the stages themselves because they feel absolutely gutted. Invisible walls box you in more here, parkour isn't as useful or fun, and there are no good collectibles to hunt for. Just boxes placed in obvious locations with lore scrolls and free level up items. Now don't get me wrong, I do appreciate the free level up items, they help with the tedium of grinding XP, but the stage design is just lacking here. Hell, enemy shinobi can even get stuck in the few larger stages the game provides. Speaking of which, the shinobi fights are way better here, like night and day compared to Estival Versus. Not only do the indicators help with enemies suddenly super armoring through your attacks like Street Fighter, but even the attack patterns of your opponents are intelligent with their design. The AI, a little bit less so. Their attacks, instead of simply having them do the full string available to the player, take bits and pieces from that move list, creating very interesting single attacks, like Hibari rolling around, Haruka repeatedly teleporting, and Mirai, despite being the weakest in her team, having the most interesting boss fight patterns out of all the shinobi. I'd actually argue that the boss versions of the characters showcase their differences far better than the playable versions do. The final boss reinforces this even better, with the game kicking the fights up to 11, even finishing off with a near Bayonetta style finish. To top off this section, gameplay is just plain better than in previous titles, but it does lack some of the bells and whistles. No online, no minigames, no AI teammates, and even no multi-enemy bosses, something I overlooked until making this review. Not a big loss compared to the gameplay gains, but something to factor in my final thoughts. Going into Burst Renewal, I expected just more of the same. Sure, the bar has been raised, but I don't expect every single developer to go above and beyond the call. With that said, despite being a remake, it is a good sign for the future, at least gameplay wise. I had a lot of fun fighting enemy shinobi 1v1, and when a large bulk of the game is exactly that, it's kind of important to nail down. I still do feel that this game is a bit too stuck in the past with its 3D beat 'em up formula, particularly because that genre has evolved over time. Sure, you have retro games like Dragon's Crown that fully embrace the classic 2D mechanics, but in the realm of 3D, it's evolved into horde-slashing Musou games or stylish DMC spectacle fighters. Senran Kagura still feels like a game made at the midpoint between that evolution, having elements of Musou and style, but failing to stick the landing with either. Outside of core gameplay, the story is okay as one of their past works, but not the best page turner. And I say that because when it goes into full book mode, some of those moments can get really dry. It's great for letting the mind fill in the blanks during dramatic moments, and I guess it's kinda the same for the ecchi scenes, but for a game of this type, I'm pretty sure most would like the game to show, not tell. If there was one thing I really want to stress praising in this game, it's once again the subtitles. They are everywhere, and that is a huge plus for weeb types like myself. A lack of multiplayer or any sort of fun side content does hurt the replayability a bit, but grinding for those A ranks can probably keep an invested player satisfied. So at the price of $39.99, my final rating for Senran Kagura Burst Renewal by Tamsoft and Honey Parade Games is a Sail++. The gameplay improvements are so worth it, but the overall reduced fan service, reuse of assets, and having many of the franchise's characters regulated to DLC, which were free for a limited time but won't be forever. Damn it, I just checked. Yumi and Miyabi are their own DLC, and I don't have those. That brings the score down. But I say plus because if you ever see a deal that gives all the character DLC for free, then that would be a strong buy recommendation for me. Either way, let me know your thoughts in the comment section, and I will see you guys next time. Ja, matane!